So here with Ian Cameron, better known to many as Buff, who is the manager of one of our drug outreach teams. Thank you for joining us today, Buff. We're going to be talking about overdose prevention facilities and their need in Northern Ireland. So first of all, can you tell us what exactly are overdose prevention facilities?
Okay, so overdose prevention facilities have been running in a number of countries through Europe and actually the rest of the world for quite some time. There's a lot of research to show the effectiveness, but basically it's a centre or a place where drug users can come with their drug of choice, in this case primarily heroin, and get clean injecting equipment, but more importantly, a place where they can safely use. It's also a great opportunity to engage people very early on in their drug using problems and try and get them linked into services. But fundamentally, it's about preventing overdose, and that's done by staff being present and observing people while they inject, and then if they need to, administering naloxone or high flow oxygen, or in worst case scenario, performing basic life support, so chest compressions and rescue breaths and things like that. So summarised, they're about saving lives.
So there are two models of overdose prevention facility. Could you explain what those are?
Okay, so you would have the sort of more medical based intervention, which would be run by trained nurses, doctors, and they're usually sort of quite formal sites and whatever. You then also have sort of community and voluntary organisations that run centres. Essentially, they both do the same thing, which is again very simple and straightforward: administer naloxone, observe people using and prevent overdose. However, it's my belief that the community and voluntary sector approach is it looks at a much wider view of the person, so they're able to talk to them and assist them around benefits, for example, talk about their housing problems and issues. But both are very effective, and in fact, there's never been one fatality or overdose in any of the centres throughout the world.
Is there a typical profile of the kinds of people that OPFs are aimed at?
Absolutely not. Drugs are used very widely and broadly in our society at the minute, and probably always have done. It's just more to the fore now. I guess there are people who are maybe more at risk of overdose and are more likely to use a service as an overdose prevention facility. So we already operate our CIS outreach service, and that would primarily focus on people who are injecting in the city centre, normally because they don't have anywhere safe to inject. So they may be homeless, they may be sharing a property with friends or family who don't know that they're using. So it's generally someone that doesn't have a safe, secure place to inject would be attracted to an overdose prevention facility. But it's not specifically for any group, it's open to all who would wish to use it.
What are the typical costs of setting up and running a facility like this?
I guess different sites and how the centre is set up, there would be differing costs. However, we're measuring this against somebody's life. This is somebody's son, somebody's daughter. But when you factor in the cost to manage overdoses on the streets of the city, the cost of ambulance crews, the cost of A&E services, the cost of the police time, services time, and then even, as a result of a death, there are significant costs as a result of that. So overdose prevention facilities have proven that they are good value for money and are cost effective.
And if agreed, how quickly could they be up and running?
I think it could be up and running fairly quickly. We already have within Belfast very well trained staff and services that respond to this problem almost on a daily basis. For example, extern we have our street injecting support service, and we're out in the streets on a daily basis carrying naloxone and responding to overdoses. We have a number of other sites throughout the city who work with people who are street homeless and drug dependent, and staff are very skilled at the administration of naloxone. So I think we could rise to the challenge quite quickly if that was the case.
Why now? Why here?
I think we've been calling for this for quite some time, and in fact, you know, Extern have been calling for this for the last 5 or 6 years. Our drug deaths are increasing, and that's a fact. The last figures we have are from 2020, where we had 218 deaths in the city, and that's in 10 years that number has doubled. So we need to be looking at this problem in a different way and responding in a different way. So, and the sooner we do that, the more lives we will save.
Can overdose prevention facilities really have an impact on drug deaths?
OPFs have a huge impact on drug-related deaths. We can see that through the research and the evidence from around the world. And again, the fact I referred to earlier, there is yet to be one fatal overdose event in any overdose prevention facility. I think that speaks very, very loudly.
So these facilities have been running for years, if not decades, in other countries around the world. Why are we so far behind in the UK and Ireland?
I think there's a number of reasons for that. I suppose, particularly in Belfast in a local context, we are relatively new in having a street injecting or a wide-scale sort of heroin injecting issue in the city. And there are many reasons why that's the case. However, we are catching up very quickly. We do some things really well here. I'm extremely proud of our needle exchange services, extremely proud of our take-home naloxone program, and in some ways we are on a par or maybe further ahead than some places in UK, Ireland or Europe. However, in this issue we are massively behind. And we need to gain ground quickly because people are dying, and that's what this is about. Every single one of those deaths are preventable. My team are responding to overdoses almost on a daily basis. In fact, in the last period of around the last year, we have responded to approximately 45 overdoses where we've had to administer naloxone on the streets. And if we were able to do that in an overdose prevention facility, we would have a dramatic impact on the amount of drug-related deaths.
What is the legal position at the moment in the UK and Ireland?
So very quickly, the law basically says that you are not allowed to facilitate someone to use drugs on your premises, and if somebody does do that, then you must inform the police. That's an old law. I would argue it's outdated. I would argue that we need to look at that. We need to have a discussion about that and move it on. You know, this isn't about encouraging or allowing people to use drugs. This is about preventing death through a very well researched and established centre and way to do that.
Realistically, what would make a drug user want to come to a facility like this? Don't they just want to be left alone? And isn't there a fear of intimidation or arrest if they were to come to such a site?
Drug users will want to use this facility and for some of the reasons that you've just gave. So people are using drugs in sometimes very dangerous places. They are scared of being caught by police or others are coming to the attention of their local community. They're often injecting in very unsanitary places and conditions, and that can lead to infections and all sorts of problems. So drug users, if given the chance, can be very responsible in their drug use. And I have no doubt that the drug use